Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. I've been talking about two topics that I think are really important and also interrelated, and that is, if you are divorcing, we know January is the month when a lot of divorces get filed. If you're divorcing somebody who is, I'm going to say narcissistic, high conflict, toxic partner, and you are also maybe feeling a little lowering in your self-worth and your self-value and in your ability to love yourself, those factors can really cause problems in your personal and professional relationships. So I have an expert for us today that's going to guide us through some of the important points we need to keep in mind and how we can get to be stronger women who are more in touch with ourselves and we truly love ourselves. So I want to introduce you to Darla Ridilla. She is a speaker, an author, and a podcast host. She is a certified somatic trauma-informed coach and self-love mentor and a relationship expert who really works with high-achieving women, which are also my target group here with divorce coaching for women. And she helps them to stop settling and start leading in their life. And Darla understands this in the fact that she knows what it's like to put on that professional face and have everybody think everything is going well, where inside you're really dealing with emotional exhaustion and, all of the side effects of these toxic relationships. So, Darla, welcome.
Thank you, Marty. I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, and I'm so excited to have you because I think, like I say, you just tie these two issues that are very real. And I can't tell you how many women I've talked to that said, oh, I pretended everything was perfect in my relationship for years, decades, and nobody had a clue how I was really struggling inside. So I think this is so important. And Darla, I know you said that you understand this from a personal way, how this happens. Tell me a little bit about how, or tell us a little bit about how this became your area of focus.
Yes. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience with divorce. I've done it 3 times and once with a narcissist. And yeah, absolutely. I remember during my first divorce, I was an executive assistant for a CEO, and I didn't tell anybody at work I was even going through one. And then when I mentioned, oh, I have to take a day off tomorrow because I have to meet with my lawyer, my coworker was like, why? Like, I'm getting divorced. They didn't even know. But yeah, absolutely. I think, particularly if we're in the corporate world or we're in the professional world, there is this certain expectation that we always have to be on. And sometimes talking about those private things can be really hard. And then what happens is that we look great on the outside. Our resume is fantastic. We're great at our jobs, but we go home at night and we're totally doing the exact opposite. We are crumbling. We're falling apart. We're giving away ourselves. We're making ourselves small in our home life.
And I couldn't, I can tell you, I try very hard never to let anybody know what I'm dealing with on the backside, on the other side of my life. And that's just been something I think I was brought up that way. We just didn't take our personal problems to people. That just, I don't know if it was just a cultural thing, if it was a generational thing. I think people are a little bit better now about expressing, their emotions and reaching out to HR and support, but it's still a big gap area for a lot of people.
It is. And I think it's a combination of both. I think it is a cultural thing and a generational. And certainly growing up, I wasn't exactly sent the greatest messages that my voice mattered. So that also, kind of added. And I will say, when you fast forward to my third divorce, I was working at a health department and they were my extended family and they were amazing. And a couple of them said, well, it went fine. They said, I want to hear from you as soon as you've told your ex that you want him. I kicked him out that day. if you need a safe space or place to stay tonight because he just goes off the handle, I want a call from you. But either way, let us know you're safe. So look at the difference in that. And that to me made a huge impact. And while I knew I was going to be okay, it was nice to know there was a backup plan.
Yes. And, I know I've said this several times on the podcast, but I actually worked as a domestic violence client advocate for several years, I think
Hmm.
right around 7. And one of the things that we know is that tends to be the most dangerous time for women or men,
Hmm.
um, is in that period when you actually say you're leaving, and then the partner then, if they are inclined to violence of any kind, that's likely to escalate or trigger. How dare you think that you can control me, or you can tell me what you're going to do? I tell you what you're going to do. So let's focus specifically on that whole idea of sort of this healing and recovery after getting out of an abusive relationship. And right now we're talking about narcissists. So
Yeah.
Darla, let's clarify. Are you focusing more, because narcissism can be associated with domestic violence and that it's physical, but it doesn't have to be. There can just and I'm not saying that to minimize it, but there may only be emotional abuse, gaslighting, manipulating, financial abuse, that you may not experience the physical violence. And of course, we always hope nobody does experience any
Mhm.
kinds of abuse. But let's talk a little bit about that whole. How do you know, like, what are the signs that you might be looking for? Because a lot of people that I've talked to don't even realize they're in a narcissistic relationship or a toxic relationship until they get out and start looking back. So I'm going to stop talking now. I've been going on for a while here. I don't know what's going on. Go ahead. Tell us.
No, that's fine. That was 100% me. So my second marriage was abusive and with a narcissist. And I didn't even know till a year after we left. It was a counselor that pointed it out to me. And it really, for me, he asked for the divorce, just what I thought was out of nowhere. And, when I look back, there were many signs, which I'll get into in a sec, but it was gosh, thank God that I was a little bit of a scrapper because he kind of recanted a couple of days later and wanted to stay together because we were tied to a lease. And something inside of me that wasn't broken, that last piece, said, no, you don't want me here. I'm leaving. But during that year, I went from thinking, I've got this, it's going to be okay, having no idea I was trauma bonded, to almost taking my life. But that lowest point in my life was actually my beginning because when I decided not to, I cried out to my higher power. That's when the counselor came in and said, do you know that this is an abusive relationship and you've continued to associate with him? Why? And then through all of that, I realized, started reading The Gaslight Effect by Robin. I can't remember her last name, but that started, oh my gosh, that's my daily life. And yes, so I did not know I was in an abusive relationship. And there were so many signs. But a big piece of that was I didn't love myself. I didn't know who I was. I was codependent. And so I was looking to be saved. And the narcissist is more than willing to come in on the white horse and say, I'll save you. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's funny you use that analogy of the knight on the white horse, because I've talked to other people about this. We set kids up with this whole fairy tale of, oh, the perfect prince or princess will appear
Yes.
and they will have the same likes as you, and they will, quite frankly, if I was dating somebody and I found them in perfect alignment, I would probably stop dating them because I would just assume they were a narcissist, which is kind of sad because you really have to get wise and be safe. But for those people who are in the relationships, it's not your fault you got into that
Mm-mm.
relationship. So you realize that, okay, this is not me, this is them, this is him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How What was it like to actually then get out, or to leave, or to extricate yourself from that relationship?
It was devastating. to be really honest. And that's why I almost took my life because I had become addicted to him and I didn't know that. So when I left, I continued to have dinner with him once a month. I was texting and calling him every day. And of course, he loved this because he's keeping me in his sphere. And
Right.
to let go of that was really hard. And I did eventually go no contact. That didn't go well because he all of a sudden he became the monster that I was told he was. And he did not like that he lost control of me. But a lot of that was really getting in touch with why I was attracted to that. And it took me two more relationships, two more boyfriends that were narcissists, as recently as 2 years ago to really break that bond. So what I realized is that I was love bombed. And this is a pattern I am now in the process of breaking, is that I get in too fast. I am all in or all out. And so I had to learn to pace myself. You talked about the person being in perfect alignment. I took that as a sign that this is the person for me. And I had to realize that taking it slower and letting time tell the story, not him telling me what the story is, was a big deal breaker. Um, it was a long process and it's still a healing process, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a stubborn person. And so I think I had to be broken down a little bit. Really, I needed that big knock on the head from the universe saying, "What the heck are you doing?" And to lose everything in order to rebuild.
And I think that's a key point. And I thank you for sharing your story because I know it's pretty vulnerable to talk about this stuff. So I really do appreciate that. And I'm sure it's resonating with other women who are listening in, or even some men that are listening. And we know not all narcissists are males. As a matter of fact, women are often quite good covert narcissists. In other words, they present very well in public, but then they're tyrants at home. So
Mhm.
what about what about the idea, like how when not you specifically, Darla, but when women are in these abusive, narcissistic, toxic relationships, I mean, they're just being torn down.
Mhm.
So they don't have that sense of independence and autonomy and all that, self-worth, self-value. What do you see as the biggest challenge for women to then, when they get out, to avoid getting pulled back in? Because narcissists are very good at bringing you right back into their control. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and say no, I'm guessing.
It takes a ton of courage. No is a full sentence, but it can be one of the most scariest words we ever use. um, Especially when we get pushed back, especially when we're manipulated and gaslighted into thinking we made a wrong decision. So, for other women, I would say if you're questioning the relationship and you decide to walk, stick with that. It's hard. I did not abide by that for sure. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. um, yeah, saying no is very difficult, but I think part of rebuilding yourself is also, and it might be a baby step, starting investing in yourself. Also thinking about how I think it's easy when we get out of a relationship to romanticize the good parts, because I
Yes.
went through that, right? Remember, I had to actually force myself to be angry at times to keep out of that relationship. Force yourself to remember the grind. What was it really like when you were in their life day every day? Don't lose sight of that. Yes, there's going to be good times and it's okay to think about that, but don't let that drive your decision to go back. Also,
Yeah.
how did your body feel, right? When you were with them, and more importantly, when you weren't with them, did you feel anxious or did you feel calm? Did you feel loved? Did you feel his words and actions match? Because they don't.
Yeah, and that's when you're talking, I'm hearing all the stories of my clients saying, when we started dating, if I wasn't with him, he would text me. In this day and age, when back when I was dating, we didn't worry about that. We didn't have cell phones necessarily, but
Right.
nowadays we're instant on communication, and you know I've had multiple clients say, I thought getting text messages every 5 or 10 minutes, being asked to send a picture of me with my friends was all about him caring about me and my safety, but it's not. It's about him putting him at the narcissist, putting the narcissist at the front of your mind all the time and making you just like a little kid accountable where you are. One text or two texts a day maybe is normal. More than that, it's probably bordering on some kind of boundary issue for most people, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the beginning, he actually used that. He was DMing me at work, which was interfering with my job. I actually got in trouble with my job after getting with him. But yeah, when there's too much communication too early, for sure, that's a
Right.
problem. And if it continues, because we have to have our own life. And it shows that they're not confident enough to have that. And they don't want that
Right.
because they want to consume you.
Yes. And that's what they call it, right? Narcissistic supply. It's what can you
Mm-hmm.
give me? Because I'm a hollow vessel and you are responsible for filling me up, right? Um,
Yes.
and I think that's one thing that in studying all this work about narcissists and taking some training on supporting people through narcissistic relationships, one of the things I always assumed was that narcissists are these people that believe in themselves and they're bigger than life and they have these grandiose feelings. And yeah, they do have that, but not because they're so full of themselves. It's because they're completely empty. There is nothing in there. And that's why they need everybody else's attention, because they don't have any capacity to be okay with themselves on their own. Um, so if you keep that in mind, why is this person calling me, texting me, demanding these things of me? That's really helpful. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the second part of this. And this is where you really help and support people, not only in recognizing the narcissistic abuse, but then in starting the healing process. So let's talk about this idea of self-love, healing after narcissism. I'm going to let you take that whichever way you want to go with it.
Yes. So 2 years ago, when I broke up with my third narcissist, I'd been with this man for a year, and it wasn't till after the relationship that the lightning bolt realization hit me. Then I decided, what's going on with me? Because I've done a lot of healing work. I did the books, I did the counseling. Why did I attract two more? And this is where the self-love came in. It was all serendipity. There's so much full circle in this story. So that was in October of 23. And in November and December, we have holidays. And I broke up with him right before the holidays. I decided to schedule 2 trips and go off by myself with my dog. I went to Ouray, Colorado, which is now why I'm back in Colorado. But anyway, on that trip, on the way out, I listened to a book by John Kim called Single on Purpose. And it changed everything for me. And self love is not about looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. That's wonderful if you want to do that. But saying it and not believing it aren't going to work. And his point was, we have to know who we are. We can't love a person we don't know. You have to find out. So that was, I had given up my music, which I'm a musician, and that's my happy place. I had given up pieces of myself. I I was who everyone told me I was, who my career was, but who's that person deep inside? No one knows. And then I realized as I started to do things, take myself out on a weekly date, explore new things, get back into my music. I started to get to know who I was. Now I know my value. Now I can love myself. Investing in that every day. And that means boundaries, that means standards. So then I started to set higher standards in my dating life, per se. And over the past year, that has really come into play because I think once we set our standards, we set our boundaries and those protect those standards. And those standards are I deserve a man who doesn't loveball me, right? I deserve a man that will love me for who I am. And I am a strong, willful, intense person. Been told I'm too much my whole life, and I realized I'm not too much. I've just been accepting too little. That is really the crux of it. I hope that answers your
I
question.
love that. I love that. So you said something that's really interesting to me. You took yourself out on a date. Um,
Hmm.
so I love that idea. I am single. I do a lot of traveling on my own. I don't have any problem walking into restaurants or, going to museums. Or I was in New York recently, went to a theater a couple of theater events on my own. But some women are really uncomfortable with that. So, can you talk a little bit about, because I wasn't always comfortable with it. I'm going to be honest with you. How do you help, or what do you say to women who go, "Oh, I can't go out on my own"?
That is hard. I think it was a little bit easier for me because I traveled for work and corporate life. And so I always like to explore the cities I was in. So that was my bridge. But for a woman who's starting from ground zero, yes. Because I think we all sit there and say, or is everyone looking at me thinking, why is she eating by herself? This is what I recommend. Find a restaurant you've been dying to try. So, first of all, you're going to have the pleasure of the food to distract you. If you're super uncomfortable, take a book. Maybe it's a dog friendly restaurant where there's a patio. Take your dog because then you don't feel alone. And the dog, I find, I went out bar hopping because we're dog friendly here on Saturday night with my dog. You don't feel alone because people are talking to you, right?
Right.
I think finding a way to make it easier and as you do it more, go to a movie where no one's going to notice, right? You're in a dark room.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really think this whole idea, and something that I had to get over, was number one, nobody cares that you're eating by yourself. That's your insecurity, not.
Yeah.
And who cares what they're talking about? That whole what is Mel Robbins' new book? Let them, right?
Let them,
Like,
Terry.
let them think whatever they want to think. Who cares? You're probably never going to see these people again.
Right? It really, you're right. It is all in our head.
Yeah.
And if for some crazy reason they do, why are you by yourself? I've been asked that before. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Why
Yeah.
not? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, as we're more, as women, I think we're more comfortable now. Like you say, I traveled a lot for business, so it wasn't anything that was really uncomfortable for me. But when I first started, when I was in my 20s, like 40 years ago, you didn't see a lot. It was more uncomfortable then. I was younger. You didn't see a lot of people on their own eating, male or female, but
Hmm.
definitely not a lot of women. So I love that idea of getting out and doing some things for yourself. Because you're right. You could go to a museum, you could go walk in the park, you could go to like some kind of community event, and nobody would even know if you were there like by yourself or with somebody or whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I went to the National Night Out this year just because I'm new in Colorado. In Durango, I just moved here 6 months ago. So it was a great way to meet people
Right.
and just do something fun.
Right. What's one other, and we're almost at a time. I can't believe how fast these conversations go. But Darla, is there one other strategy or one other, like you said, small step that somebody can take who doesn't feel comfortable being on their own and has been in one of these relationships and maybe doesn't want to jump right into the dating scene again, but also doesn't want to sit around the house all the time?
I definitely don't recommend getting back into the dating scene quickly. And while you're in that space, there are so many things you can do, whether it's a book club or a local meetup.com has been my savior every time I've moved. There are so many groups out there that have interests like yours. So you don't have to go places alone. They go hiking together. They go to restaurants together, right?
I forgot about that. And
Hmm.
quite often now there isn't anything in my area. I'm in a small rural area, so there isn't. But a lot of my friends use that even when they're traveling for business. If they're going to be for a week or 2 weeks in a particular location, they'll get on that meetup, and they say it's mostly single people that go to those things, but it's not single people looking for dating. It's single
No.
people that just want to do things, that they have interest in. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Anything else, Darla, that you think is we didn't cover? I mean, I know this is a huge topic and we could probably talk for days on this, but anything that you really wanted to share that maybe you didn't get a chance to?
The only thing is that I always tell people just to have grace for yourself. When you're making a change, you are not going to do it perfectly and you're not meant to. So if you make a mistake or you accidentally contact your ex and you shouldn't have, that's okay. You know what? Say, oh, yeah, next tomorrow I won't do that. Start over tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow is always another day, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Um, and Darla, you have kindly offered a gift for the audience. Can you just tell us a little bit about that gift?
Yes, absolutely. So something I said today landed for you and you just want to talk to me more. I do have a free 30-minute call that I do. And that's just for us just to see what your blocks are, what your challenges are and what your next steps are.
And thank you for that. And so, I always encourage people take advantage of these gifts that the guests generously give because, first of all, as you can tell, Darla has a real passion for this. It's coming from her heart. And if you are getting out of one of these toxic relationships, you really will find that having support helps you with your healing and maybe even speeds up the process a little bit, rather than trying to do it all on your own. So other than your free gift, which is fantastic, if people want to reach out and find out more about what you do, what's the best way to do that, Darla?
Yeah, the best way is my website has everything. So that's highvaluewoman.info. All my socials and my podcast as well is on there.
And I will make sure all of that gets in the show notes. And Darla, thank you so much for this conversation. I have a feeling we probably need you to come back and go a little deeper into some of this stuff on a future episode. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to coming back.
Yes, me too. And thank you all for listening into this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next Tuesday. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.